Hey everyone, PushingUpRoses here, and welcome back to Spooky Month on my spooky channel. I want you to imagine something, a witch's brew, if you will.
Witch's brew?
And the ingredients are the early illustrations of Tim Burton and the comics of Charles Addams, the whimsy and fantasy of Terry Pratchett, and the light-hearted nature and mechanic of Monkey Island. Add just a dash of Greek mythology and toadstool powder, and you have a little game called Prim. And if that speaks to your spooky cute heart the way it spoke to me, then you will want to keep watching. Prim is a beautiful adventure game developed by Common Colors. I hadn't known about it until I covered it on my podcast, Save Your Game, which is surprising to me because the aesthetic of this game very much appeals to my interests. It had been in development for a pretty long time, then a demo came out a couple years ago, and as of October 24th, it has been released. Since this is a new release, I'm going to be keeping this review pretty spoiler-free. We'll start with a quick overview, then follow that with what I liked about the game, and we'll end with some critique. This title follows a rebellious 16-year-old girl named Prim. When she unexpectedly loses her mother, she ends up under the care of her father, Death. The influence here is Terry Pratchett's character, Death, from the Discworld series, who has an adopted daughter named Isabel. In the book Mort, Isabel is also a 16-year-old who becomes unhappy with her life, living in Death's realm for 35 years as a 16-year-old with very few people to talk to. Mort is a fantastic book and I highly recommend it. I can definitely see how it influenced the concept of Prim. The amusing idea of Death having a daughter is explored more in this game, as like Isabel, Prim is not thrilled to be living with her father with very few friends.
Death has a daughter. This is ridiculous.
One day, while wanting to learn more about her mother, her and her best friend, named Tristan, go up into the attic to look for her mother's belongings. While Prim is searching, she triggers a magic portal. Death comes through and takes her back to the underworld with him, and poor Tristan is left behind, wondering where his best friend went. In the land of the living, she is determined to be missing. Prim does not like this new life as she misses Tristan, and her father doesn't seem to understand teenagers as most parents don't.
I had a life, and you stole it from me. I had a friend.
There are plenty of beings in my realm. I will allow you to meet them, so you can make new friends. But only once you stop your fruitless attempts to escape, of course.
He locks her in her room on her 16th birthday, but with the help of her Aunt Karis, who is what we like to call goth as shit, she escapes with a little eyeball friend you get to keep in your inventory, and she is free to explore. She mostly wants to go back to say hello to Tristan, even though she was warned that, having been in the land of the dead, she may look different to him now. That reminds me of some of the scenes from Grim Fandango where Manny Calavera, a Grim Reaper, sees the living differently and they see him differently.
I know you can't hear me, but try to feel what I'm about to say deep down in your soul. Don't eat the gazpacho.
Unfortunately, trying to meet up with Tristan, who is what we like to call cute as button, causes things to go awry. Prim, now more miserable than ever, must undo her mistakes, which I won't disclose here in specific, while trying to form a relationship with her weird as heck dad. I like his coat. So I like the story a lot. It's simple and sweet, but it's not going to be the most detailed or profound. It does have some touching moments and themes of loss and grief, but mostly my enjoyment of this game came from the vibes. This is where I would like to gently compare it to Monkey Island. Not necessarily in an aesthetic way. This is like if Monkey Island were illustrated by Charles Addams, who was the cartoonist who created the Addams Family, but with more lightheartedness and silly characters. Something I wasn't expecting, but was pleasantly surprised by, was the element of Greek mythology. Death's name is Thanatos, and during your travels you meet Persephone, Charon, the ferryman, Cerberus, who seems to be a pug, and that alone cracks me up, and the Three Fates. Like most people who had a section on Greek mythology in 7th grade, I grew up being really intrigued by it. Also, I watched Hercules when I was young, so I'm basically an expert now. There's a character in the game named Echo who is in love with one of the Three Fates, Lachesis. He has a great puzzle involving getting to know the three sisters and teaching him a song to win them all over so he can date her. I really enjoyed this section, and I just wanted to give a small shout out to this specifically because I appreciate smart puzzle design that doesn't go off the rails. I also really like this tree. His name is Spruce. The writing is decent, it has a cute sense of humor, nothing that I would call laugh out loud, but fun and clever. On the scale of LucasArts to Sierra, I would say the humor leans towards LucasArts, but doesn't fully get there. And speaking of those companies, this game has a very classic point-and-click structure. Not just the UI, but also in the way puzzles work. You're going to find yourself doing fetch quests, finding items for characters, and traveling by use of the map. And speaking of that, I love that this world is populated with characters. Even though this is not a huge map and there are not many screens to explore compared to other adventure games, it does feel alive and bustling in its own way. These are the kind of adventure games I like. Part of my enjoyment for the genre comes from character interaction, which is why I never got into adventure games like Myst. I get lonely and I need people to talk to. I think the puzzles are breezy and make sense for the most part. The UI is easy to use and the animations are beautiful. Even the dialogue boxes are pretty. I love how they're framed with different shapes and items and flowers. The attention to detail is exemplary. Typically, I don't like games that are in black and white. I don't know exactly why, but I think it's the Return of the Oberdin's fault. Sometimes games like this make my eyes hurt. There's something about that stark contrast that makes my brain strain. But this game is a more smooth grayscale, so it's very easy on the eyes, and very much fits the setting of the underworld and the somewhat goth aesthetic many of the characters have. There's no doubt that it looks fantastic and expressive, but I think the thing I like the most about this game is just how it makes me feel, which may differ from your experience, but I think it's worth mentioning. I lost my dad when I was young, and after that I became a somewhat troubled teen, but I also really started to discover my interests and what makes me happy, and those things were dark, spooky, goth, skeletal. So Prim woke up this feeling in me that remembered when I first discovered spooky things like this. Spooky media, the older Tim Burton stuff, all things oddities and curiosities. I think I was seeing a little bit of myself in the character, so I found that comforting and nostalgic. And because of that, I had a really lovely experience with the game. Again, not necessarily profound or deep. It's not that deep, bro, but just nice. It's like when you're a spooky goth and you go to an oddities convention and everything around you is something you like. You look to your right, you see something great. You look to your left, you see something great again. That's how I felt about Prim. It's the perfect, spooky cute game that I was happy to find. So overall, I like this game and I appreciate it for its beauty and wholesome nature, though there are a strange amount of pee jokes in this game. Wasn't expecting that many references to urine. That all being said, I do have some criticism because, as we know, even though art is great, it's rarely perfect. So I wouldn't call Prim a short game, but because it feels like such a grand adventure with its underworld setting and fun characters, I do wish it was longer. The game consists of 3 chapters and 1 map. Because I loved it so much, I wanted another chapter to explore. I did spend about 5.5 hours on the game, but it felt like it could have done with another 2 or 3, and listen, I know how much that's asking. I'm an artist myself, art takes time. There's just a slightly unfinished feeling about Prim. Even the final chapter feels too abrupt. I was wanting a little more of a grand conclusion. There's a mini card game you can play in Prim called Casket Ball. Think of Triple Triad from Final Fantasy VIII, which was my jam, or a game like Hearthstone. Even though I had fun with it and was determined to beat every character and take their best cards, I do think I would have preferred maybe more adventure gameplay. More! It's definitely a cute feature. I had fun with it. I just want more. I realize that that is a somewhat odd criticism, just simply wanting more gameplay, but if I were to add something to this game, it would be 1 more map and a chapter before the final one. I also want to touch on the voice acting because while I personally liked it, I think the voice of Prim can get a touch grating. To me, she's giving Louise Belcher energy, so I ended up liking her as I played.
What am I supposed to do with a stupid pocket knife?
Well, for one, it's not a knife, it's a scythe.
Whatever. You're gone all day just to finally show up with a gift that's as useless as all the other trash you expect me to waste my time with.
Even though I really like the puzzles in this game, there is one thing I had hoped for more of, and that's the use of this little guy who I named Goggle. Goggle has a special ability to figure out people's secrets, and I thought that was such a cool little mechanic. You can solve puzzles by using your little eye buddy, who also acts as your second eye, by the way.
Whoa, that feels weird.
I think because I like this idea so much, I again wanted more of it. I was hoping to use Goggle more to get into the minds of these characters, even if only to learn more about them. And I think that's really all I have for Prim. Though I had some criticisms, I really did enjoy this game, and I would love to see more in the same vein. I hope you consider giving it a try. If this review intrigued you, then I highly recommend searching for Prim on Steam because there is a free demo you can download so you can try it before purchasing. I also spoke more in depth about this game on my podcast, which I will link in the description below, so be sure to check that out. Thank you so much for joining me today, and stay spooky. Hey everyone, thanks again for watching my video about Prim. I hope it inspired you to check it out. If you want to see more videos from me, I have so many. There's so many. But before diving into my backlog, I want to thank my loyal patrons for supporting the channel. If you feel like you have just like way too much money and you want to support an eccentric artist, check out my Patreon page. If not, shares, likes, and comments help to defeat the almighty algorithm. If you want to see more from me, here's a few recommendations on the screen. On the right, we have a video from my flagship series, That Time on Murder, She Wrote, and on the left is the last indie adventure game I reviewed called The Phantom Fellows, which also has a death theme. We're all about death today, my friends. Thanks again, and as always, I will see you in the next one.